Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome back to my channel, My Loverlies. If you've never been here before, thank you so much for clicking on my video. I am so happy you found me. I do so hope that you will like and subscribe before you leave. Become part of the Mama family. Mama's got you back, at least where makeup's concerned, and definitely when that makeup is cheap. Today is True Love Tuesday, and we are talking about Alicia Moore. You know who she is? We're talking about Pink and her husband, Carey Hart. Before we get started, a very special, very warm welcome to any of those that are new to my channel. I am so incredibly happy that you are here. If you enjoy the content, I do so hope that you will mash that thumbs up button. I hope that you will subscribe if you have not already. And I hope that you will ring my bell, turn on your notifications, so that way, next time I upload a video, you can come right back here and we can hang out together again. Also, my eye makeup is already done. I was very much inspired by Cotton Candy. It's a little pink and blue moment. I used the Ace Beaute paletteopoly palette. Such a cutie pie. Love this thing so much. I got this on sale. I got it for a steal, really. Such a beautiful, beautiful palette. You guys already know how I feel about Ace Beaute just in general. Their stuff never disappoints. If you are interested, I did make sure to film a TikTok on today's eye look. I'll make sure to have the tag for that, as well as all of my other socials, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff, listed in the description box below. Guys, if you are not following me on all my other socials, you definitely should go do that. I post fun content every single day, and if you're following me everywhere, you don't have to worry about missing a single moment of it. Also, I will make sure to put a full list of all of the products that I use in today's video in the description box as well. I don't usually talk too awful much about the products that I'm using during True Love Tuesday, but of course, if you have any questions about what I used or how I used it, all you have to do is leave me a comment and I will get back to you. All right, with all of that out of the way, let's dive into the love story. If this is your first time visiting for True Love Tuesday, I sit here, I do my makeup, and I tell you an epic love story along the way. This week we are talking about Pink and her hubby, Carey Hart. Their love story is a little bit lesser known, but it is so true to who she is as a person. I think Pink is very honest and very open. She's also very, very real, and her love story is no different. I think a lot of celebrities, when they put their business out there, they put a perfected version of it out, and oftentimes they cut out the nitty-gritty parts, and Pink just doesn't do that. So I find that their love story is super relatable and just very, very real. Before we get started, guys, if you see me looking over in this direction, it is because I am looking at my notes. We do have quite a few pages of notes for today's story, though I don't think we're going to be here for an eternity. We're probably going to be here for a minute, so I hope that you will sit back, relax, get comfy, get cozy, get you a big old glass of something to drink, and let's go ahead and dive in to the love story. As always, I'm going to start first talking a little bit about each individually, and then we'll get into their love story as a whole. We're going to start at the very beginning and work our way up to the here and now. So Pink was born Alicia Beth Moore. Who knew her real name? Because I certainly didn't. She was born Alicia Beth Moore on September 8th, 1979. She was born in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Her mother, Judith Moore, was an emergency room nurse, while her father, James Moore, was an insurance salesman. Her mother is Jewish, though Pink herself doesn't really subscribe to the religion. She's more spiritual than she is anything else, but she does describe herself as an Irish, German, Lithuanian Jew. She does have one sibling, an older brother named Jason, and they grew up in a pretty solidly middle-class, very normal childhood. Now, the only thing that kind of was weird about her childhood was the fact that her parents' relationship was actually incredibly toxic. They were not good for each other in any way, shape, or form. And because of that, they ended up divorcing when Alicia was still fairly young. I think she was around 10 to 13 when her parents divorced. And this actually had a pretty large impact on who she became as a person. It actually went a long way into the formation of her personality. Her parents' very, very messy divorce had a pretty profound effect on both her and her older brother. However, I think Pink took it to the nth degree, and she just really maybe kind of used it a little bit as an excuse to kind of act out just a little bit. So after her parents divorced, she really started she started smoking cigarettes, and this was not good for her because she suffered with childhood asthma as well. So this was not good for her health. It's not good for anybody's health. But she started hanging around the wrong crowd, you know, that kind of thing. She got into the party scene. And y'all, all of this is happening by the time she's 13. She very much took it as an excuse to rebel. Now, she was an incredibly active child as well, had an abundance of energy. So her mother actually enrolled her in youth gymnastics, and she was in gymnastics from around the ages of 4 to around 12 years old, and she's actually a professionally trained gymnast. And I think this is evidenced by a lot of her music videos, a lot of her stage shows, things like that. She's incredibly acrobatic during a lot of that. I know she does a lot of the, you know, like the ropes, the sheets that come down from the ceiling. I know she's done that in quite a few of her shows, like a few of her videos as well. So she is very, very, she's athletic, but she's very physical as well. She took to gymnastics like a fish out of water and eventually became competitive with it as well. She competed competitively in gymnastics from around the ages of 4 to 12 years old. And 12 years old is when she kind of took a step back from gymnastics and really started to focus on her music. Now, throughout her entire childhood, she went through quite a few phases. There was a point in time where she wanted to be a skateboarder, a bunch of different things, right? She loved the gymnastics, but it really wasn't like her calling. So she's basically just trying to figure herself out. Now, throughout all of this, she's staying very close to the alt scene. So anything that wasn't mainstream, anything that was just a little bit off the beaten path was something that pretty much held her interest. Now, through all of this, the only thing that really was just like consistent was her love of music. By the time she was 13, the music had really become a giant part of her life. And throughout all of her phases, they could come and they could go. She didn't really care. But with music, she found a focus and a drive that she just didn't experience anywhere else. Because of that, she really put a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of dedication into figuring out what it was that she really wanted to do when it came to music. By the time she was 14, she was already pretty much a staple in the Philadelphia party scene. She was at the clubs, she was doing gigs with other musicians, things like that. So she's definitely like taking a step forward and really trying to make music a priority. She was singing guest spots at local clubs. She was competing in different like band competitions and talent shows. Like, she was really trying to make this her thing and really trying to make something happen for her in the music world. So she was eventually asked to sing backup for a local DJ's rap group called School of Thought. And a short time later, somebody must have seen the show, and very shortly thereafter, she was discovered. She was discovered by an executive of MCA Records, joined a girls group, an R&B group called Basic Instinct. Now, that only lasted for like 2 years, and nothing really ever came of that. And pretty much directly after that group dissolved, she entered another one, and this group was called Choice. So she's in this group for, I want to say, another couple of years, but again, it doesn't really ever go anywhere. At this point, she's basically just done being a part of a group. She decides that she's gonna go solo, and that's exactly what she does. If you guys have never seen any of Pink's super early work, you definitely should go check it out, because it is so different than anything that she does now. Her look and her sound have changed so much since then. Back then, she had super bright pink hair, and she was very edgy, very punky, very alternative. She still is, but even more so then. So as soon as Pink decided that she was gonna do a solo career, she also decided that she needed a new name, right? She needed a new name for this new portion of her life. Now, one of her very favorite movies was Reservoir Dogs. And all of her friends and family told her that her personality was incredibly similar to that of Mr. Pink, his character from the movie. So, going forward, the new solo artist that she was going to become was going to be known as Pink. She released her first solo album in 2000 entitled Can't Take Me Home, but it wasn't until her second album that she really kind of like hit it big, and people, I mean, even though her first album was really well received, it got pretty high on the charts, it wasn't until her second one that she really exploded. I'm Going Out, or what was it called? Get the Party Started. That song, I know that is the first song that we all really remember from Pink, and that was absolutely ginormous. That song really kind of skyrocketed her career, and from that point on, y'all, the rest is basically just history. Like, she continued to make hit after hit, and she is one of the best. She is pop royalty, right? Basically, like, she was there from the beginning, and she still continues to make hits even to this day. Now, when it comes to Pink's dating history, there's really not much to it. She's only been linked to, I want to say, maybe 3 people, and none of them were serious relationships at all. The first man she was really linked to was, what was his name? Treach from Naughty by Nature, and I think they did a song together, and they just kind of like hooked up. They hooked up actually they hooked up. She met him after she had done Moulin Rouge with Lil' Kim, right, and Christina Aguilera. They did that big song, and Lil' Kim had invited Pink to a party that she was hosting for her group, Junior Mafia, and at that party is where she kind of linked up with Treach. That is where they decided to do a song together, and throughout the process of them making a song together, it was rumored, it was never verified, but it was rumored that they were having just a little bit of an affair. Though, again, neither one of their people, neither one of their representatives ever confirmed it. They were kind of spotted out together a couple of times, but it didn't last very long, and it was just kind of like, it was just a blip on the radar. So that was in 2002, and then the next year, she hooked up very, very briefly with Tommy Lee. We all know who Tommy Lee is. His most famous ex, Pamela Anderson, actually confirmed that, yes, they were indeed an item. Now, I don't think it was necessarily a relationship. It was definitely more of just a hookup situation, but Pamela did indeed confirm that they were definitely hooking up, though she didn't know who had started it and who had broke up with who. Then, lastly, she went on just maybe like 1 or 2 dates with Joey Fatone. Do you guys remember him from NSYNC? I used to have the absolute biggest crush on him. He seemed like such a sweetheart. But she did. She went on a date with Joey Fatone. I think that happened in 2000 and... I think that was like the end of 2003, beginning of 2004. Not certain of the timeline, but she spoke about it in 2013. She said that Joey was so in love with her. He actually wanted to date her so badly that he asked her father for permission to come pick her up and take her out on a date. Father granted the permission. He picked her up and he took her to Friendly's and bought her an ice cream. They just kind of sat there and conversated for just a little while. She said that he was a sweetheart, very, very nice, very, very polite, just never really went anywhere, but that he had a giant, giant crush on her. Now, when it comes to Carey, y'all, this man is, I think he's just as remarkable as Pink, if not more so. He is a staple. He is probably one of the originals when it comes to BMX, motocross, any kind of two-wheeled vehicle. Like, Carey Hart was definitely in the forefront of, especially when it started to blow up and become super popular. Like, he was one of the originators, right? He is one of the first people to ever be able to successfully perform the stunt, the Superman, like, during competition. He's one of the first people to ever complete that trick successfully. He's also the inventor of the invert Superman. I'm not sure what that is, but he is important in the BMX motocross kind of sphere. Kind of a big deal, right? So he was born Carey Jason Hart on July 17th, 1975. That makes him about 4 years older than Miss Alicia. He was raised in Las Vegas, Nevada, though sadly his parents too, they divorced when he was very, very young. However, he was raised with his father. So instead of his mother taking over his, his formative years, his father stepped in and took care of both him and his brother. He has a brother named Tony. So he has 2 siblings in total. He's got a brother named Tony and then a sister named Jessica. Now the sister, she has a different parent. Now I'm not sure if they have the same mother or the same father. I'm thinking that it's the same mother because Jessica was raised with the mother and not with the 2 brothers. Carey's father's name was Tony Hart, and he instilled in Carey, well, both of his boys, he instilled a major work ethic. Now, Tony was very much a blue-collar gentleman. However, he did end up making money there in his later years. He became a construction company owner. So they did have money as they got a little bit older. And this is where like the ATVs and basically the toys came into play. Now, Carey, he started actually riding motorcycles and things like that when he was like, I want to say like 4 to 6 years old. So he really got into it when he was very, very young and immediately fell in love with it. And he decided that it was going to become his career. Y'all, like I said, he is pretty important. He's been there from the beginning when it comes to motocross, BMX, things like that. And he's actually got a really impressive record. He's won gold medals and silver medals. He definitely competed throughout his career and won. He was like really, really good at it. So he won gold medals at the Australian X Games in 1990 and then in both 1990 and 2002, as well as the silver medal at the Summer X Games in Los Angeles in 2002 as well. There are so many more. We'd be here for absolutely forever if I sat here and just listed them all off. Just know he's good at what he does. He also teamed up with John Huntington in 2004 to open up Hart and Huntington Tattoo Company. So they started off with like a tattoo parlor, and then they kind of branched out into clothing and apparel. They opened up stores absolutely everywhere. I don't know how well his business is doing right now. I did kind of do a little bit of research and found out that they ended up closing quite a few of their stores. I know they closed their Hawaii location, a couple of different locations. So I don't know if that's still a thing. However, between all of that, he's still competing, he's still working, and he ended up doing like guest spots in a couple of different movies as well, just because he was pretty popular at the time. So his celebrity definitely didn't just hinge on the motorbike or the motocross kind of thing. He dabbled into a little bit of everything. Now, when it comes to Carey's relationships, not a lot is known. Now, we do know that he was in 2 relationships prior to meeting Pink, but y'all, you got to think about the fact that they met when they were both still so young, that there really wasn't a lot of time to have a bunch of super meaningful relationships before they hooked up. They hooked up, I think Pink was only like 21 or 22 when they hooked up. So really, they're each other's first loves. It was actually because of Carey's job that they were even introduced in the first place. Now, their relationship certainly has not been all sunshine and rainbows, but they eventually figured it out, and they're going on almost 3 decades of being together. So Pink and Carey, they met in August of 2001 in Philadelphia. They met at the Summer X Games. That event actually turned out to be kind of catastrophic, especially for Carey. He ended up failing an attempt at a stunt that he was trying to do on his dirt bike and ended up falling 35 feet. He fell at 35 feet. He broke 3 of his ribs. He fractured, I think it was his left foot. He shattered his right foot. He fell 35 feet, broke 3 ribs and his tailbone. Now, before the accident, he and Pink had been introduced, and the attraction was both intense and immediate. Now, Pink was definitely attracted to Carey's kind of bad boy persona. Definitely was known as a little bit of a womanizer back in the day. Very, very attractive. If you don't know what he looks like, you should by now, because I've probably popped up a couple of pictures of him. But he is super, super cute. And on top of that, you know, he's like this super bad boy. He takes risks. He can ride a motorcycle, like all kinds of things. He was right up Pink's alley. And then when he gets introduced to Pink, he is immediately kind of like impressed by her no BS kind of attitude, right? And of course, Pink is incredibly beautiful just in of her own right? So he's immediately attracted to her. She's immediately attracted to him. And then he goes and he competes, and he ends up just completely and totally just demolishing his body. Their first meeting had left such an impression on Pink that she actually wound up going and visiting Carey while he was in the hospital recovering from his crash. And that's when, you know, they got to talking, really got to know each other, and eventually they started dating. The beginning of their relationship was equal parts wonderful and toxic. Neither one of them really had any kind of frame of reference for what a healthy, sustainable relationship should look like. And again, they're both very, very young. I think Pink was only around 22. Carey, I think she was 21. Carey was like 24, 25. So still relatively, you know, baby-ish. And again, neither one of them had ever had any kind of real serious relationship. So they had no idea how to have one, how to be in one, and how to behave when you're in a committed monogamous kind of relationship. Carey was very much a womanizer. He was a flirt. And, you know, there was a lot of jealousy, especially in the beginning portion of their relationship. Now you have Pink, who is pretty much a major celebrity at this point, and though Carey is a celebrity as well, his celebrity is not quite as grand and all-encompassing as Pink's is. She's definitely the bigger name in the relationship, definitely has more money. So there's a skewed power balance, as well as, you know, they're not able to spend a ton of time together because she's busy. She has prior work engagements, commitments, things like that. So in the beginning, things were very, very rocky. Now, even though they had their problems, they managed to date pretty quietly. Like, they weren't hiding it from anybody, but they kept their business out of the papers, out of the tabloids. Now, they were able to have a fairly successful relationship for around 2 years, and then at the end of that 2-year mark, they were like, you know, it just got to be so toxic that they had to take a break. So they ended up taking a little bit of a step back from each other and just kind of like going off their separate ways and doing their own things for a little while. Pink went on to say that after you spend a couple of nights in the hospital with him while he's broken, the excitement kind of wears off. And, you know, it's so cool that he can go out and do all these stunts, and it's so cool that she's a singer and she's like super famous and things like that. But the reality of the situation was a little bit too real for them at that point in time. And like she said, the excitement just kind of wore off, and they were just like, oh, it's just too much. It's too much, and I just can't do it right now. So they kind of like, they kind of went their own separate ways. And they did this for a little bit, for I think almost a year. But then they got back together. And of course, during this time, during the separation, they're continuing to speak. Like, it's not I never want to see you again. It's just like, I need a break. It's kind of like, it's just like, I just need a minute. And that was in 2002. Now, by 2004, they are back together. They are a couple once again, and they give it their all this time. They know what to expect. They have done a little bit of work on themselves. They've grown up a little bit in the year that they were apart. And this time around, they're really, they're committed to really making it work, because they genuinely do love each other. They just don't know how to be in a relationship. After they got back together, things were going just swimmingly. Like, everything was all hunky-dory. They had kind of ironed out most of their problems by this point, and life is absolutely, life is just going great. Things were going so well that actually Pink decided that she was ready to get married. Like, this was going to be her man. This was her forever, and she was ready to walk down the aisle. She was ready to take that next step. And knowing Pink, there was no way that she was going to conform to tradition in any sense of the word. So instead of her waiting on Carey to, you know, take his sweet time and propose to her, she decided that she was going to propose to Carey. She was going to throw that tradition thing right out the window, and she was going to take her fate into her own hands. So that's exactly what she did, y'all. Pink took proposing very, very seriously. This was not just like a spur of the moment, just done on a whim kind of thing. She really thought about it. She decided that this was who she wanted to spend the rest of her life with. This was her man. So she set to planning a proposal. In June of 2005, Pink proposed to Carey during the Pro 250 class finals in Mammoth, California. So, of course, Pink is trying to be the supportive girlfriend, and she is in the stands while Carey is competing, and he is driving his motorcycle and doing his thing, tearing up the racetrack. And about midway through the race, she decides that now is the perfect time. So she pulls out this big poster board, and on the poster board, she's written the words, "Will you marry me?" Now, at first, Carey doesn't really pay her too much attention. I think at first he probably thinks it's a little bit of a joke. And of course, she is very funny. They both have a sense of humor. So he's probably just thinking that she's kind of like, you know, messing with him just a little bit. So he ignores her, and he goes around the track a couple more times. Well, the next time he comes around the track, her sign has changed, and this time it says, "I'm serious. Will you marry me?" Yo, this man, I think it must have like light bulb moment, and he must have realized that she's really serious. She's really asking me to marry her. Carey immediately pulled off the track. He runs up into the stands and like picks Pink up in his arms and is like, "Of course, yes, yes, yes." And they just kind of ride off into the sunset and enjoying the excitement of their new engagement. The race completely forgotten. Everybody else, like the whole world, completely forgotten. They're just kind of floating on cloud 9 and the high that is their new engagement. Now, Pink and Carey didn't have a super long engagement at all. They didn't have a super short one either. I think they were engaged for around a year. They got married a little under a year later on January 7th of 2006 in a non-denominational ceremony at a local resort in Costa Rica. They pledged their lives to each other in front of more than 100 of their closest friends and family. They went big. They went big for the wedding. They really focused more so on it being, you know, a good time. Like, they weren't really worried about tradition in any way, shape, or form. They didn't really have a specific, like, theme to the wedding either. It was basically just, like, fun, sun, sand, alcohol. Let's just party. Let's have a good time. Because remember, at this point in time, they're still relatively young, and they don't have children. They don't really have any like responsibilities, so they could have a wedding where they just kind of danced the night away. They definitely focused more on spirituality and romance rather than tradition. And again, they just made sure that the experience was tailored to them as people instead of what the world and their families might have expected. After the wedding, both Pink and Carey were definitely on cloud 9. They were floating in a little bit of a delicious haze of newlywed bliss, and just like reality was not a thing to them at the moment. They were just kind of wrapped up in a cocoon of love for each other. Pretty quickly, though, the reality came a-knocking, and it was back to real life and the real world. And y'all, like I said, their relationship has not been sunshine and roses by any means. And very quickly after the honeymoon, like I said, reality was knocking on the door, and, you know, their problems just came crashing back into the picture. They had done a lot of work in that year that they had separated. They had been together. When they got back together, things seemed really, really great. So then, of course, they get married. Well, after the honeymoon phase was over, it seems like their problems came back tenfold. And again, it was almost like, you know what, we made a mistake. I don't want to do this anymore. And they tried. They really, really tried to work on their problems. But it seems like after they got married, and of course they were like living together now because they hadn't lived together before. So they're living together now. They're spending a bunch more time together. And I think their problems were just magnified. Maybe they had put a little bit of a Band-Aid on them before, But at this point, there was no hiding from the problems anymore, and it proved to be a little bit more than they could actually handle. About 2 years after they got married, they decided that they were done. They were done. They couldn't do it anymore. Their problems were insurmountable, and they just needed a clean break. So they actually ended up separating for the second time. And they released a statement. They said the decision to separate was made by best friends with a huge amount of love and respect for one another. While the marriage is over, the friendship has never been stronger. And the friendship part of the whole thing was never something that was a problem for them. They got along. It's just they're so similar that they would butt heads like absolute crazy. And again, it's just kind of like built and built and built, and it became something that they didn't think they would be able to overcome. They had serious problems, again, with jealousy. They had problems with communication. Communication was one of the biggest things. They just didn't know how to talk to each other, and they certainly didn't know how to talk to each other and talk about their problems in a respectful and non-accusatory way. During this time is when Pink kind of goes off the deep end just a little bit. This is also the point in time when she wrote that song, So What? She says, I guess I just lost my husband. I don't know where he went. I guess I'll just drink my money. I'm not going to pay his rent. Baby. When she released that song and we all heard it, like we knew exactly what was going on. She was having a really hard time, and she was very open and honest with her fans about how difficult of a time she was having. And even through all of this, like, she still loved Carey. Like, she didn't want to divorce. She didn't want to give up on her marriage. It's just neither one of them really knew how to face and fix their problems. They didn't know. Again, there's no rule book, right? There's no handbook on how to be married, just like there isn't one on parenting. There isn't one on life in general. So they're just kind of like hopeless at this point. Like, how it seems like their problems are so large that it's just they don't know what to do about it, right? So they separate, and they're separated for, I think, around 14 months, a little bit over a year. And again, during this time, they're still in contact with one another, because even though they're not together romantically, they are still very much friends. So Carey calls Pink one night, and he's like, listen, he had done a joint venture, and he had opened up a club in Las Vegas. And he calls Pink, and he's like, it would be a giant favor. It would be, fantastic if you could come out and you could perform at my club opening on New Year's Eve. And Pink, of course, is like, all right, yeah, okay, I'll do this for you. She gets on a plane. She's like, all right, I'm coming. But she goes with a plan. Like, she is, at this point, she knows that she wants her husband back. Like, she's tired of being alone. She misses him like freaking crazy. And there's no reason for them, like, there's got to be a way that they can work this out. There's got to be a way they can work through this. So she gets on a plane, she flies to Las Vegas, and she goes with a plan. She goes with a plan. She gets there. She starts setting up to perform at the club, all of that good stuff. And as soon as she finishes her sound check, she invites Carey. She's like, hey, you want to come up to the hotel room, have a drink? We'll talk, we'll chit chat for a minute before I have to go on to perform. Carey's like, yeah, let's do it. Sounds great. So Carey goes up to her room, and they sit, they have a little bit of a drink, they kind of loosen up just a little bit, and then Pink puts her plan in action. Pink had packed a photo album, and in this photo album, Pink is so incredibly sentimental. She is, you wouldn't think it, but she is a very sentimental, kind of mushy person, right? So throughout their relationship, you got to remember that they've been together for about like 8 years at this point. So they have history, right? So throughout the 8 years of their relationship so far, Pink has saved every gift. Pink has saved every card. Every note that Carey has ever written or given to her, she has saved it. And she has put it all in this scrapbook. And she pulls the scrapbook out of her luggage, and she's like, take a look at this, right? And they sit there and they go through all of the pictures together, from the very first love notes that they had given to each other to the very last. And throughout it, she has interspersed pictures of when they were really, really happy together. And it is very much a trip down memory lane. It is very much like a pull at the heartstrings kind of thing. And she was like, do you really want to give up on us? Like, is all of this, all of the good, is it really worth giving up on? So as they're coming to the very end of this of this scrapbook. She comes to a picture, and it's a picture of Pink very early on in her career. And I guess she had done some kind of like horror movie, something like that. And it's a picture of her in SFX makeup, and she's kind of got her neck cut, and she's got scrapes and bruises, and she just looks all banged up. And beside the picture, she had written, "This is what it feels like to be without you," right? And then right beside that was a picture of a baby, and underneath that picture were written the words, "The rest is up to you," right? So basically 100% putting the ball in Carey's court. And behind that picture of the baby, she pulls out their divorce papers. And this is the last step before they well and truly call it quits, right? And she's like, you know, it's up to you. If you really want to walk away from this, if you really want to walk away from us, if you're done and just don't want to deal with it anymore, she was like, we can sign the divorce papers right now and it can just be done. It's up to you. Do you want to give this another shot, or do you just want to call it? And of course, by this point, both her and Carey are literally sobbing, tears running down both of their faces. They're like, oh, you know, it feels like something big has just happened. And indeed it had, because Carey picks up those divorce papers, baby, and he rips them in half. He's like, I'm not going to live another day without you. And that right then and there, before she ever went back up on stage, anything like that, y'all, they made up in a very, very big way. And I got to give it to Pink. I was like, that is definitely a very smart way to do it. She told this man, and she was very vulnerable about it as well. Like, there was no manipulation. There was no trying to force him into anything. She basically just told him, baby, I don't want to give you up. I'm not ready to lose you yet. If you want to be with me, I'm ready to put in whatever work may be necessary, but I want to be with you and I want to make this work. And he agreed, y'all. And from that point on, they, like, just a couple of weeks later, they completely and totally called off the divorce, and they made it public that they were indeed back together. And, you know, for the third time is the charm. After their reconciliation, they immediately went into couples counseling. They realized that they had a serious problem with communication, and realized that unless they did something about it and learned how to speak to each other and how to handle any problems that might arise, they were just going to end up breaking up again 2 years later. So Pink has said multiple times that she credits couples therapy to the reason that they are still together. She said it has made an immeasurable difference in the way that they interact with each other and, you know, just as a couple in general. Now, after they were able to kind of, like, I don't know, address some of their issues, and things were starting to get a lot better, 2 years after they reconciled for the last time, this is when, you know, that baby picture really came into play. They decided that they were at a place in both of their careers where they could maybe take a little bit of a step back and really focus on making maybe just one more of their dreams come true. Pink and Carey welcomed their first baby, a daughter named Willow. They welcomed her on June 2nd of 2011. And then later on, about 5-6 years later, they welcomed their second child, their son Jameson, on December 26th of 2016. Now, Willow is absolutely a little mini-me of Pink. She is a little singer. I think they worked together on the song Cover Me in Sunshine. I know we've all heard that song. It was absolutely everywhere, especially over on TikTok not too long ago. So Willow is definitely a little clone of Pink, whereas their son Jameson is definitely Carey's little mini-me. He's into dirt biking and skateboarding. He loves jet skiing and, you know, all those kinds of boyish activities. However, he does sing with his mom on occasion. Also, after they had kind of reconciled, Pink shot the music video for her video So What, and Carey was actually in that music video. They, again, both have a pretty severe sense of humor, so he was in that video. But that's not the only video he's been in. He's been in a bunch of her music videos. He's been in the music video for So What, Just Like Fire, True Love, Just Give Me a Reason. That was another big one that she's had recently. But most recently, in June of 2019, Carey appeared in Pink's video for 90 Days. 90 Days is very much a tribute. It is very much a tribute to their relationship. It is a tribute to their love for each other and their family. And it's kind of like a, you know, we did it, because it's been a long time since they've broken up. Like, they've been able to figure out how to make their relationship work, and they're very proud of that. They're very proud of their relationship. They're very proud of the family that they have built together. And who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't be proud of the empire that they've built, right? So 90 Days is definitely a we did it kind of thing. Y'all, they have now been together over 21 years. That is most of their adult lives. At this point, I think it's safe to say that they're going to be together forever. I think the fact that it wasn't easy, and the fact that they had to choose to be together and they had to fight to make it work, even though it wasn't easy in the beginning, I think they've definitely come out stronger the other side for it. Guys, that is the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed telling it. Here is today's finished look. Do we like it? Do we love it? Let me know in the comments below. I am so grateful that you guys decided to come in and hang out with me today. If you did enjoy the video, I hope that you will give it a big old thumbs up before you leave. Guys, I love you so very much. As always, no filters, no fancy lighting. It is just me sitting in front of my camera telling you guys an epic love story, hoping you guys are enjoying what I'm doing. And until next time, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and remember, you're important. Bye.